Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Purposive Communication class. Before anything else, before we start with our first session, I'd like you to look at the learning outcomes for this lesson one. So, at the end of the lesson, you should be able to describe communication process viewed from different models, demonstrate the changes of communication through times, and adopt cultural differences to effective communication. So, to be able to communicate is the best skill that we have because through communication we are able to share our ideas, our feelings to everyone. It is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals, either through signs, symbols, behavior, or words. So you can see on your screen that we are being able to define what communication is. Okay, so we can say that the purpose of communication is getting your message across to the receiver as precise and correct as possible, but doing this involves effort from both the sender of the message and of course the receiver. We see here the importance of every element involved in the communication process. So what are the different elements of communication? So um, there are actually four common or five, no, five common elements of communication. However, we will also include the rest, no, the rest of the elements. So let's start first with the source. When we speak of the source, um, it is the person talking to. No, it can either be an author of a book, a speaker, or a teacher who discusses a lesson. So that's the source. No? The next one is the message. Of course, the message is a communication that is being delivered, okay, by the speaker. So you see now that the speaker is someone who sends the message. Okay, so the third element is what we call the channel. Okay, so the channel is the means of communication. So when we speak of means of communication, it is the medium to which the message is being transferred, no, to to the receiver, Okay, so the next one is the receiver. So when the message is sent by the sender, it is received by the recipient. Okay, so we can see now that the receiver is the recipient of the message. Okay, so another element is what we call the feedback. Okay, now once the sender sends the message which passes on through a channel and is received by the receiver, no, now any response coming from the receiver is what we call a feedback. Okay, that's a feedback. Okay, so the next one is environment. So when we speak of environment, this does not only refer to the place, no, the place. It also refers to the mood, no, and the mindset of both the sender and the receiver. Okay, so both, no, sender and receiver have to consider the setting, okay, where the communication takes place. Okay, so the next one is context. Okay, context means the meaning conveyed from the message. How have you understood, okay, the message at the moment? Okay, when someone tells you, um, "I love you," yeah, so how do you accept it? Okay, how do you process the word "I love you"? Ayan, that's what you call context. Okay, and the last one is of course interference. Okay, interference. So when we speak of interference, this refers to barriers, hindrances to effective communication. So, yan. So, interference. Okay. So, now, however, as we try to communicate in the communication process, sometimes it can be filled with error. Okay. With messages often misinterpreted by the recipient, that makes it difficult, no, that makes communication difficult because at, at each step, no, in the process, there lies a major potential of errors. Okay, errors of meaning, or no, so whatever error, no. Okay, so there are hindrances, we have said. These hindrances are what we call barriers to effective communication. Okay, so these are the things that allows us not to receive the message clearly. Okay, so first of the barriers to effective communication is what we call the psychological barriers. Okay, so when we speak of psychological, no, psychological, so it has something to do with our mood, no? It has something to do with what is in our mind. Okay, so this means that um, when we speak of psychological barriers, these are the thoughts, no, that allows us not to interpret the message clearly. Okay, so sometimes when you are suffering from headache, okay, when you are dizzy, and so it says there, these are thoughts that hamper the interpreted message received by the receiver. Okay, yeah, see. um, the next one is physical barriers. Okay, so when we speak of physical barriers, these are the things, no, the things which disrupt communication, such as, for example, yan, weather, or climate condition, or it can also be our physical health, or it can also be what we call our physical deformities, no, physical deformities, no? It hinders, no, it hinders, sometimes it gives it does not allow us to understand, no, the message clearly. Okay, another barrier to effective communication is what we call linguistic and cultural barriers. Okay, when we speak of linguistic and cultural barriers, this refers to the words. Okay, words, sometimes there are words that are of say different of different meaning, yeah, of different meaning. So I say, for example, in the Philippine context, no, in the Philippine context, we have common words but of different meaning, of different meaning, to which, no, when it is spoken or it's used in a sentence, no, there comes a big, no, a major difference in the meaning of the message once it is received by other other of other culture, no, you see that makes linguistic and cultural barriers. Okay, and the last barrier is what we call the mechanical barrier. Okay, when we speak of mechanical barrier, these are sometimes experienced because of one, poor signal, no? Poor signal, or it can also be because you are already experiencing a battery low, and battery low consumption. Those are what we call mechanical barriers. So again, I repeat, communication is difficult because at each step in the process, no, there lies a major potential of errors, especially of meaning. And so because of these different barriers to effective communication, it hinders us to understand better. It hinders us to understand clearly the message that is being sent to us. Okay. Now, um, there are also different models of communication to which we can see, no, to which we can see and identify, no, identify. So first of the model is what we call the Aristotle's model of communication. The earliest model that structures how public speaking is undergone is explained through Aristotle's model of communication. So you can see on your screen, this is the Aristotle model of communication. In this model, Aristotle identify, okay, five elements which compose the communication process. So what are those? These are the speaker, the speech, the occasion, the audience, and the effects. Okay, so it's like the common elements that we have. Okay, however, this model is speaker centered. Okay, when we speak of speaker centered, the it's only the it's only the speaker who is talking. Okay, and the result to the audience is always passive. Okay, passive. So this is what we call a one line communication or one way communication. Why? Because it's only the speaker who is talking. Okay, and the audience, they are just there listening. Okay, so the next okay the next communication model is that of Shannon Weaver model of communication. Okay, Shannon Weaver's model of communication is actually a technological model of communication. Okay, why it is technological model of communication? um, technologically in telephone calls, the caller function as the sender. Okay, so the sender, okay, while the encoder is the telephone. Okay, the telephone turns the caller's voice into series of binary data packages, which is sent down to the telephone lines. Okay, the telephone lines. The telephone wire now works as channel, and the telephone which the receiver uses to receive the message becomes the decoder. Okay, the decoder, and the destination of the call is the receiver. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so you can see on the screen, there's a noise. No, there's a noise. The noise present in the channel may interrupt the communication process, which results to, of course, poor communication. With this, the receiver may respond that he or she wasn't able to understand what the caller had sent. Okay, so that is Shannon Weaver's model of communication. Okay. What about Osgood? Okay. Osgood and Osgood model of communication. Okay. So Osgood model of communication, okay. As you can see on your screen, no? So we have here, um, this is what we call Osgood and Scrum model of communication. Why? Because there is a, say, a connection between the two. Okay, so let's see. Um, this two-way street flow of communication, in which the sender and the receiver, okay, send back and forth message. So this one, no, sends back and forth. No, so it, yeah, it, everyone is sending their feedback. Okay, so this was actually popularized by Osgood. So this model considers communication as circular Yan, circular, because both the encoder, okay, the encoder and the decoder, okay, takes turn in sending the message. Okay, it takes turn, okay, in sending the message, and along the process of communication, the recipients filter filter to interpret, okay, interpret the meaning of the words sent to them. Okay. Okay. Now, in the latter years, okay, in the latter years, Wilbur Scrum, this one, adopted Osgood's model and added another element in communication, which is now what we call the experience. Ayan, so experience. In 2017, Mishra um, identified culture, social background, beliefs, experiences, values, and rules that corresponds to this element, which is what we call experience. Okay. And of course, and the last model of communication which we will be discussing on our this first part is what we call White's stages of communication. Okay, this one is stages of communication. According to White, it is possible to begin at any stage of the elements outlined, uh, uh, because um, because communication is really circular. Okay, circular. Yeah, you can see here, it's circular. So, which may start, can start at the beginning, okay, at the beginning and ends at any point. So, this element in this model, ayan, so we have here different elements. We have thinking, symbolizing, expressing,